Good evening. I'd like to call the Lincoln Way 210 Board of Education meeting for Thursday, September 21st, 2023 to order. Please, if you're able, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Linda, can you call the roll?
Dr. Berthold, Mrs. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Kostick, Mr. Lacine,
Here.
Mrs. Olenek, Mrs. Stokes,
Here.
Mr. Janik.
Here. All right, we have three individuals signed up for public comment. The first is Andrew Franson. Can you press the green, the button with the little person on it?
Apologies. Good evening, guys. Very good to be able to speak in front of you tonight. It's good to see everybody. First, I recognize some faces. I don't. For those who don't know, I'm a senior at Lincoln Way East High School, and I've come here today to speak about a issue that I feel divides students, and it ultimately causes harm for our students. So in my 4 years, I have noticed that our community is very extremely hostile towards those who are LGBTQ. 4 years ago, I came out as gay. And I remember how students reacted to that. I remember the congratulations for coming out. I remember the I'm proud of you, I remember this, but the one thing that always stuck with me was the hateful comments that I had received. Hateful comments that I still do receive. I'm very disappointed to see the fact that our community, especially in our school districts, still has this issue that we just can't treat each other as human beings. I remember a month ago watching the board meeting of the student from Lincoln Way West, and he shared his story. And I just want to quickly share my story in hopes that this can propel some sort of proper action that will hopefully take care of this issue. Beginning of the school year, I remember when we were doing the photos, the school photos, and I had to sit in the back. I have the tendency to zone out, so I will just stare in a direction and just forget where I am. A student in front of me decided that it was okay to say, "Hey, why are you staring at me? I'm not gay." I'm just zoning out. I don't know why you're making this comment. I've had similar comments made at me, and at first I did report them, and I did talk to people, and I did mention that, hey, this is happening to me. The one response I always got was, ignore it. They just want attention. They just want that gratification of ruining your day. That is the one thing that builds a hateful community. And I hope that being able to speak out at this board meeting, where parents are watching, where administrators are present, where people that I greatly look up to, and in a district where I wish to return to as a future teacher, I hope that we can solve this issue. I hope that this issue dies, it goes away, it becomes less prevalent than what we currently have. And I think that being able to share this story and share my experience as an LGBTQ student is very, very important. I just want to take the time to say that I appreciate being able to speak, and thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is Constance Schramm.
Good evening. My name is Constance Schramm. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the aquatic supervisor position and its salary. I have been working here at Lincoln Way for 23 years. 22 years of that, I have been the aquatic supervisor. In 2017, the aquatic director over all 3 pools at Lincoln Way retired. The administration decided to eliminate that position. They told us 3 aquatic supervisors that we would absorb the duties of the aquatic director for our pool while continuing to do our supervising duties. Right away, I told Rob Schiffbauer, who was the assistant superintendent at the time, that we were not getting paid enough to run a pool, the aquatic department, and continue our supervised duties. He said we could review it after the first year and work on the concerns that came up. My salary was $50,000 at the start of the 2017-2018 school year with those added duties. In the year 2000, when the pools originally opened, the 2 aquatic director salaries were $50,000. They had a secretary and an aquatic supervisor under them. If you use the CPI inflation calculator from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov, it shows that a salary of $50,000 in the year 2000 would be over $90,000 today. If you take 2% from the year 2000, when the original directors were hired at $50,000, that 2023 salary would be around $82,000. Every year since 2017, I have been fighting for a salary increase. I have been told you are paid fairly. However, the labor stats or statistics show that I am not paid fairly. Last year, in the 2022-2023 school year, Lincoln Way hired a new aquatic supervisor at the salary of $73,834. That was almost $16,000 more than me. It is almost $20,000 more than the West aquatic supervisor. When I questioned this, I was told, bottom line, the reason for the discrepancy in pay is the degree and the teacher's contract. I asked, why was the position hired in a teacher's contract when the previous aquatic supervisor had a teaching degree and was not on teacher's contract? I never got a response. I assumed it was because they could not get somebody to take the position with such a low salary. This position does not require a teaching certificate. However, it does require an American Red Cross lifeguarding with CPR, AED, and professional rescuer and first aid. When I met with Dr. Tingley and I told him my concerns, he told me that I needed to be patient and it might take a few years to catch up the salary to the $73,834. I told him I might not be here in a year if I did not get a significant raise. He told me everybody needs to do what makes them happy. I am here tonight because I love my job, okay? I don't want to quit, but the fact is, if I did quit, Lincoln Way would go out and hire somebody for $75,000 or more. Why are they refusing to give a dedicated employee of 23 years a competitive salary? I think I've been extremely patient, considering this is the start of my 7th year in this position. It is time for me to get a proper salary. I've gone through all the appropriate management and Lincoln Way leaders, but I have not been provided any satisfaction. I'm here today to ask you all to consider this labor issue and to do the right thing to provide a fair and equitable salary across the aquatic supervisors. We have waited long enough. I appreciate your time and consideration regarding this very important matter. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next up is Edith Lutz.
Good evening. I'm here as a community member and a parent of the Lincoln Way alumni students. Both my students went here. It's been about 10 years since I stood in front of you at the board regarding JROTC. And when you guys, the board at that time had wanted to get rid of the program altogether. We were able to convince the board to only get rid of 2 of the school units instead of all 4 of them. Each building had their own unit. I'm back here because I'd like to tell you some of the positives that this program has done for the students in this program. Students can have possibilities that are endless. There have been juniors that have gotten scholarships to go between their junior year and senior year to college to get their pilot's ground school at a cost of the scholarship's worth between $20,000 and $30,000, depending on what university they go to. There's Purdue, there's Emory-Riddle, there's multiple different schools. There's also scholarships for cybersecurity where the students can get, again, during their junior year, they are able to, and we've had students that have gotten these, that's why I'm bringing them up. They get their certificates that they need for IT, plus college credits. Again, it's around $20,000. We've had students, actually one of the first students, that got a junior ROTC full ride scholarship to go to college. We have students that go to the military academies, which their schooling is paid for. We have students that have gotten full ride scholarships to different universities. Matter of fact, my 2 students, my son and daughter, both got those and are serving right now into the military. One went to University of Wisconsin and the other one went to Chicago Loyola. You also have a student right now that is at MIT on an ROTC scholarship. So the students are getting a lot of positives out of this. We had students that were selected to go to the Naval Academy for a summer STEM program. In extracurriculars that ROTC has, they have academic team, which has gone to the nationals in Washington, D.C. 3 times. All of the travel expenses have been paid for by the military. Our teams have placed 8th, 4th, and 3rd place. We've had teams go to the cybersecurity state finals and finish 2nd. Not only that, but any of the students that have gone to just enlist after school, if they enlist and go through boot camp and pass, they get a 2 pay grade increase in their salary right off the bat when they're done. There's not too many jobs that you can get that right off the bat. This program has done a lot of good for our community and for our students. This program is also most of it is paid for by the government. I know that there is some salary to the instructors that you guys pay, but all the curriculum books, all of the students' uniforms, the alterations of the uniforms, the drill team, not just uniforms, but the drill team equipment is all paid for. The computers that the instructors use and the printers are all government-owned. They don't cost the school very much. Even their health insurance is covered by the government. I'm here asking you the question of, with all the good that this program has done to the community and for these students, that we had a instructor retire at the end of last school year, and the job still has not been posted on your website. And I'm wondering why the Home Center, which is who is in charge of ROTC, or the JROTC program, I know that they have final say on who the instructors are that come to here, but they also say that the schools can offer to post the jobs so that people know that there's an opening here. So I'm asking you guys today, if you would please consider putting this on our site. This program's good. The Home Center has already said that each unit has to have 2 instructors or otherwise they close. Lockport has already lost their unit because both the men have retired. We also have not only the one that retired this year, we're going to have Colonel O at East also retiring, and I know that Sergeant Schlifka will be retiring soon too. Bolingbrook is just barely holding on to their deal. I'm asking you guys as a board to please consider to help endorse this program and show that, you know, these opportunities are open for all students. That's what I would like to hear from today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just real quick on the ROTC front, we have posted through the ROTC site. One of the issues that we're seeing in Illinois is our military leaders that are retiring are choosing not to stay in the Chicagoland area. They're heading south, they're heading southeast, but we have continued to work with headquarters, and we think we have a potential candidate that will start next fall. Once they retire, they've already said they're coming back to this area, so we've got our fingers crossed. But thank you, Edith. That's something we'll continue to look into.
All right, moving on. We now open the hearing for the fiscal year 2024 budget. I do not have anybody signed up for public comment on the budget. Mike, did you maybe want to run through your presentation now?
Yep, sure. So I'll do this now during the hearing instead of later. The final 24 budget and all supporting documents are uploaded. As you know, I presented this pretty comprehensively last month, and so my job tonight here during the hearing portion is just to present the changes. So at a very high level, as I mentioned last month, we closed fiscal year 23 at 99.8% of budget for revenues and 99.7% for expenses, so a very successful fiscal year there. And then last month, with the tentative budget, we allocated $3.3 million toward facility improvements, and that tentative budget included an operating surplus of almost $1.9 million. The final budget tonight has changed only modestly, so the reasons for those changes are noted on the right-hand side of the tables shown on the upcoming slides. For sake of the public hearing, for anyone who may be watching online and listening in the audience, I will state that we've met all requirements, so the board is aware we've met all requirements for public notice, a copy of which is uploaded in board docs. Operating revenues have increased $567,000. Small adjustments have been made to investments, taxes, and grant reimbursements. Nothing of particular note, with one exception I'd like to say of that. $204,000 is the addition of the digital equity grant. We had a grant approved in June for $204,000 for student devices. That was not in the budget at all last month. And so I've added that. That is offsetting on both the revenue and expense side, just so you know, because we'll purchase those and be reimbursed in the fiscal year. Salaries and benefits have been finalized. Very minor changes there. And then we did increase a few capital equipment and service contract budgets. So the all-in change, once again, including that grant, $686,000 for expenses. And then finally, the capital projects allocation has been adjusted to $3 million to balance the operating budget and maintain our fund balances. On the last slide here, you'll see some numbers highlighted. The $3 million transfer I just mentioned is in blue. That's for capital projects. And that leads to the number in green, which is $2,047,000. That is this year's operating surplus. And that's the surplus required in the budget to keep us at, in yellow, the 33% operating fund balance per board policy. Last month, as you know, with Summit Hill leaving in transportation land, we had just over $600,000 as a anticipated and planned, it's fine, deficit in the transportation fund. There's two things there. First, our operating budget still has a surplus, so a deficit in that fund is fine, especially at the very bottom of this, underneath that red dollar. You can see that deficit has shrunk to $350,000 as we refined. And at the very, very bottom, you can see we still project to end with 46% fund balance in that fund. So I feel very comfortable with that as the plan for FY24. And then finally, the capital projects deficit seen in orange on the far right would be a planned spending down of board-approved monies and capital projects. As you know, the pool pack and the 2 elevators were not able to be done this summer due to delays. I do not have a way of predicting how much work our contractors can get done, invoices for, and we cut checks by June 30th when they come back this upcoming summer to do that work in May and June. So I think the conservative approach is to present to you as part of this budget tonight an all-fund surplus that you see in the bottom right-hand corner of $707,000. That would be if we spent all the money. I don't think that's going to happen. If and if so, when whatever portion is unspent by July 1st, that simply transfers into spending and planned expenses for fiscal year 25. So there's no harm there. Those are the only updates I prepared for the hearing tonight. I feel very confident with this budget, and so I would ask for board approval during the action portion of the meeting tonight, but if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
All right, any questions for Mike on the budget? Nope, okay.
Thank you very much.
Definitely come a long way the past 5-6 years. So is there anyone else who would like to comment on the fiscal year 2024 budget? All right, if there are no further comments, I would need a motion and a second to close the budget hearing.
Second.
All right, Linda, can you call the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up is the summer 2023 capital projects update.
We have Brian Scully with us from DLA. He's one of our primary architects.
Hi, thanks for having me here tonight. Appreciate you having me out here to kind of go over what happened this past summer. If you look at the screen behind you, we'll go through some photos. So, kind of walk you through each project. So, general remodeling project took place here at Central. This is kind of the before of the main office, the school main office where you check in. Had the big TVs on the wall. When you walked in, big desks with a lot of file cabinets that are kind of on display. It was chopped up. All the offices were off the windows, so there was no natural light. Moving to now, what it looks like now. New check-in, that desk has moved to the opposite wall, so the flow for people coming in works much better. The offices got moved to the outside wall, so everyone has natural light coming out. Most people have natural light coming in their offices. Larger waiting space and dividing up some of the waiting between visitors and students who are waiting to see staff. So that's been a great success. What's not pictured in here as well were divider curtains for the field house. Those were just recently installed, so I didn't have them in the project. But if you want to walk down the field house and see them rolled up because they're preparing for homecoming and the pep assembly, you can see them rolled up at the ceiling, but they look really good. Paving replacement, we hit 4 buildings this year. So at Central, the rear parking lot here out by the tennis courts, you see that's what it looked like from the air. Previous, you'll see there's a lot of, even from 30,000 feet, you can see a lot of cracking, patching in that parking lot. This is what it looks like at the end of this summer. So that was just a mill down and an overlay. So that's not a full depth replacement. We're digging out the stone, but the subgrade was in good shape. So we could just kind of grind it down, recompact it, and put new top layers of asphalt there. Did the same thing at East, the parking area back by the tennis courts, and then on the west side of the building, the skinnier parking lot on the west moving toward the front there, where your exit is from the one-way through the main office. There, we did the mill and overlay as well. Here you see in-progress photos. We went with concrete aprons going out to the street. The throat of the driveway is really what gets beat up from wheel turn, especially from SUVs or buses. So going to concrete there is going to last a much longer time, and it turned out really nicely. Over the transportation building, wanted to, again, buses, right, and turning wheels, wanted to address the area around the gas pumps over there. They weren't that well protected. It was asphalt. There were some bollards there, but the pumps are on the same level as the wheels. So put in new concrete over there. You see slight curb and a whole bunch of bollards around those tanks. All concrete over there now. Got rid of some curbing as well, so the buses don't have to traverse over curbs as much when they go to the parking area. So it's a little hard to see here, but the flow works out much better. And again, a more durable surface there for where the buses are going to be making those turns. Oops. And over at West, the before picture. So over at West, what we did is the big triangle kind of grass island there over by the baseball fields and the tennis courts. We removed that and to create wider, more parking. in that area. And then as we get over toward the Performing Arts Center, the Fine Arts Wing widened that driveway that kind of sweeps along as you head out to the main road. That was a choke point. You can kind of see it there where the sidewalk at the end of the newer looking asphalt reaches the older asphalt where that sidewalk dips down to the south. So what we did there is widen that out, move that sidewalk, got rid of some of the actual islands that were in the parking lot and just made them striped out islands. So it allows for a little bit more flow of traffic around. And that's kind of what I'm referring to. So you can see that the top, the left side, top and bottom is that grass island turned into angled parking. And on the right-hand side is an example of some of those islands that have been cut out, moved over, allowing for the lane to be widened for the flow through there. And then roofs, we're always doing roofs. So over at this building, we did the roofs on either side of the field, so on the field house, kind of the storage areas in the field house, and then over the swimming pool. This is what they looked like before, gravel roofs on over that storage by the field house, and then over the pool, what's called a built-up roofing system. You can see the age on it, you can see all the seams. And this is what it looks like now. So it's the same product that we used on the field house at East last year. The district really likes how that turned out. So it's a liquid applied material. It gives you a 20-year warranty. They were done very well. Actually, had wound up having the same contractor was the low bidder this year as we had last year. So they were familiar with the buildings and very familiar with the system. Over at East, we hit the gymnasium, we hit the pool, and a couple other very small roofs around the Fine Arts Wing. And same thing. You see that a couple of the photos below are in progress to show you how that looks as they're layering up the system with buckets of this liquid. So they take out, there were some wet areas of insulation that we replaced, but mostly it is just kind of sucking off as much of the gravel as you can get to a good surface, cleaning that roof, and then layering up with some felts and then layers of the liquid applied. And so that's what you wind up with. And that was the summer because, as Mike said, because of delays, we couldn't do the pool mechanical nor either of the elevators. And that's just the reality we're still living with today. Any questions?
Do you anticipate those delays ever getting back to quote-unquote normal?
Boy, I'd like to be able to predict that. The best that we can do is plan for it. And obviously, we still hear COVID, but we're fairly removed from COVID, so I think it's just become the way that it is now. Part of it is, as well, everyone using ESSER funds or stimulus funds for HVAC projects, for ventilation, for things like that. So there's a lot of projects in the queue that manufacturers are still trying to keep up with. The best that we can do is deal with it by going out earlier. We recently bid the other pool pack, which is a couple months ahead of when we did it last year, looking at perhaps paving and roofing for the upcoming summer. That's not really affected by the supply chain, but just getting ahead of it as well, just to try but mostly it's mechanical equipment right now that is the thing that we have to. Used to be 28 weeks, and now it's 35, 42, 52 weeks sometimes. We just have to really plan for that way ahead of time.
Any other questions?
Did we end up doing the track? Or no? What do we?
The track, did you say? The central track? Those repairs are scheduled for October.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up, we have the curriculum review cycle update.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to give you just a little bit of an update on progress from one of the board goals from last year under curriculum instruction and assessment. I'll be talking today about goal 3, which was to update the curriculum review cycle and district curriculum documents to account for current pedagogy, use of student achievement data, and alignment to Illinois instructional mandates. We had early in the year rolled out the new curriculum review cycle to all of our department chairs, and we selected 3 departments to actually begin that cycle last school year. I did present this last fall. This is just a brief little overview for you. There are 3 main steps when we start a review cycle. That starts with the program evaluation, and that's what I'd like to focus a little bit on today. If you look to the left, you see that we established the cycle to be a 6-year cycle, taking the time to do research and actually evaluate and have everything rooted in data and what our students want, what our teachers want, what current trends are out there. We give ourselves a year to do research, and then we do a full year to plan and get resources in place before any new curriculum or changes to existing curriculum would roll out. And then we have that for 3 years, and then we start all over evaluating that success again. Last year, our English department, our business and technology department, and our reading department were scheduled to go through that process. The rest of the departments were working on transferring old curriculum documents into our new scope and sequence documents. We think these are very easy to read, include all the components of the particular course, including alignment to standards, essential questions, potential outcomes, and resources. We have this for all but 5 of our departments currently. The ones who were going through program evaluation didn't necessarily have the time to embark upon the scope and sequence. Over the summer, they were all officially published to our website, and so they are out there for public access, which has already been valuable when parents might call and ask us what our curriculum is. It's out there, and they can easily click on it and understand. As I mentioned, we had 3 departments targeted to start the program evaluation process. The reading department, if you remember last year, I had come back, I think in October or November, and we talked about that Accelerated Placement Act, where we were also looking at automatic enrollment. That dramatically impacted the enrollment in our reading program, and so we took them out of the program evaluation portion of this goal, and they simply were restructuring for this school year for the changes that took place according to that particular act. Our department, English and Business and Technology, went through, there were some growing pains for the teachers and the department chairs, but when all was said and done and we got to the end of the year, they had beautiful presentations that were rooted in research. Research from the teachers. Our English department put out a survey to Illinois public colleges asking about their expectations for students when they come as writers. They dug into data, multiple forms from resources that we have here at school, rooting their decisions not just in what they felt was right, but in what they saw was needed. Hopefully, as we go throughout the course of this year, instead of me coming up and talking to you, I will get these departments out here to give you a closer look at what they did. Our third portion of that goal was to create and implement instructional units regarding computer and media literacy. Those were new standards, required curriculum from the state board. When we looked at it at first, we did see, most of our curriculum already contained the information that was in the standards, but we did want to make a push for this. So last year, what we decided to do was to start out with our librarians. On our early release days, the librarians met in the fall with all of our reading classes and did 3 instructional units on media literacy. In the spring, they switched to our English 1 classes. So last year, we targeted the freshmen. I'm happy to say that all of those presentations were a success, but we also learned some things from them. The librarians really wanted to have smaller groups where the kids could take out their devices and interact more in the presentations. So this year, as we had planned, we were rolling out more of the units into our sophomore curriculum as well. So we've taken it down to 4 units for freshmen, which is going to be done this school year through English 1 classes, and then 4 units for sophomores, which is going to be done through our American history and United States history classes. You can see the topics that are out there. The librarians have been hard at work, and they've already met for the first unit and throughout all of August. They took my date seriously. I said it was kind of a roundabout, try to get them done, and they did. They got all that first unit done in August, and they have already started and are at least halfway through their second presentations, and I've had fabulous reviews from the English teachers who have been bringing their classes in there. So great progress last year, and already have revised many things and off to even better things this year. Any questions?
Renee, are we only using Wednesdays as leverage points for the CRC, or how are you able to do everything that you do just on Wednesdays once a month?
Well, I don't do it all.
Yeah.
Working with the department chairs, we meet with them, and the department chairs are crucial. They formulate a committee, and so depending on institute days and in the summer, Dr. Fieri was able to get us some professional development money in the summers, where a lot of the departments have in the past done work. The English department, they were excited about this, and they wanted to get started on their research. They knew what was ahead of them. They knew what they wanted to look into this year, so they started with that summer PD. We do have our institute days in addition to the half-days.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna hear me say it time and time again. I just don't think that there is enough time. Once a month is just not enough time to do this, to the fidelity that it requires. And so I think that, eventually we're gonna have a bigger discussion down the road when we talk about goals and what it looks like 5 years from now. But I know the busing issue is an issue for that. We get it I get 2.5 hours per week, and it's still not enough time to do this correctly. So I think in the bigger picture, I think what we ask you and we ask administrators is a lot to do and I know you're talking about the summers, but even then you pay them $25 an hour in the summertime, you're not gonna get lots of people volunteering to be doing it in the summertime at all, So I think they need more time, is number one. And then I wanted to add, and again, just coming from a teacher, I think we have to think about this too, is that, there's a deep fear when we say, a common assessment, that we're gonna be turning into our teachers into this cookie cutter automaton robot. And that's a fear that so I just want you, when you present this to teachers, what we hear is that we're taking away some of our liberty and our creativity in the classroom. So we're gonna have to make sure that there's this idea of data. When we think about data and accurately analyzing data, usually you want one assessment to accurately depict that, but that kids are all different. Your kid learns differently from my child, and it's just very hard to do one assessment and then analyze that data point. I know you probably use Mastery Manager as well with the standards, but again, that's generally, you can put performance events in there, but it's hard to accurately depict, what's happening on that one common assessment. So that's just a fear that the teachers have. So when we talk about it with teachers, I'm sure you're already getting this fear.
When I said growing pains, that was
Yeah.
the main
Yeah.
pain that was
Yeah.
coming. And it is interesting because I think when you say data and you say assessments to teachers, they're often thinking,
Yeah.
what can we track in Mastery Manager? There are different ways. Mastery Manager, we have already kicked off this year with more of a focus on data, and it
Right.
not just being numerical or Scantron or only aligned to a standard, but student products. My question to the teachers, what are you teaching, why you're teaching? How do you know it works?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to come through a system. You can tell me. How do we know? A great example is last year when they did Scope and Sequence, our science department. You can see, if you go and click on all their Scope and Sequence documents, they are using a CER rubric that they spent the year developing, claim evidence reasoning. And so they found a different way to do it, a different way that when they come to program evaluation, they're going to be able to look at that.
Right.
To see. And so looking at common assessments, there's different ways in Mastery Manager. We have a beautiful new thing called the item bank. We've started with cleaning up old standards. We're in process now to give teachers the flexibility to create their own tests using items that our teachers write and put in there to kind of go through and click different. The technology has progressed, but right now, the only common assessments that we do have standard across the district are semester exams.
Okay.
As you review the curriculum and look at the data, are you going back to the feeder districts and letting them know what you're seeing is working or not working here so they can start to maybe pivot, downstream before the students get here?
100%. We've had the Lincoln Way Area Curriculum Council, and we have vertical teams. In fact, our first vertical team is coming up next Thursday, where we have both our special services departments and our English learner departments going out to the feeder schools for visits. And then we get together at the end. All the curriculum directors meet monthly as well in addition to that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the consent agenda. Approval of the regular meeting minutes from August 10th, 2023. Approval of the closed meeting minutes of August 10th, 2023. Approval to hold the closed session minute summaries from January 1st, 2023 through May 31st, 2023. Approval of the payrolls of August 18th, 2023, September 5th, 2023, and September 20th, 2023. Personnel reports, out-of-state travel, and the 2023-2024 compensation reports. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move.
Do I have a second? I thought you were going to say motion, fly in with a motion. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Yes, second.
All right, any questions? Anybody want anything pulled? No? All right, hearing none. Linda, can you open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have presentation of invoices from August 11th, 2023 through September 21st, 2023. If I could get a motion from Joe, maybe?
Absolutely.
Since you have it right there?
Motion right now.
Gotcha.
Motion to approve invoices in the amount of $5,829,191.54.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions on the invoices? All right, hearing none. Linda, can you open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the treasurer's report for July and August 2023.
Through August, revenues and expenses were nearly a one-to-one. We received $9.7 million in revenue in August and spent just over $9 million. At the end of the month, cash balance was $49 million. As we look at our year-to-date actuals compared to budget and compared to this time last year, our operating expenses are trending on course, and then revenues are ahead slightly, and that's just because we got that tax money after July 1st. If you want to take a look at the investment summary, both our invested monies in the treasury bills and our liquid monies in the sweep account, they're both continuing to enjoy high rates, which is great, and that's fantastic for now. What that causes me, though, is additional conversations with PMA. So now the position we're in, because those rates are holding, the Fed did not make any adjustments. They did predict there might be a small increase by the end of the year. We're now trying to decide how much to lock up. It's a little, as you know, risk analysis. Want to lock it in at those rates, but also keeping it liquid with a one-day sweep has its pros as well. Please know that we're continuing to ladder those T-bills in. We have entered and agreed upon two more this month, which will show up in next month's treasurer's report, so I'm working with PMA on a weekly basis there. As you can imagine, with revenues trending a little high early in the fiscal year, the cash variance for July and August was positive. Our bond payments were lower in July. That will balance out in January. As per usual, the supporting docs have a high level of detail and transparency, but usually I keep it at the high level. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Mike?
No, I was just gonna say the money market looks to be doing better than the T-bills, so that's good there on the.
And that does change. Illinois funds is a little bit higher. And then the ICS through Next Bank is right there as well. There are, obviously, the longer you go out, at least has been over the last year, we can get a little bit better rates. And so what I'm working with PMA is to try and lock some in before our bond payments are due, Ms. Johnson.
For the cash flow detail, I noticed the one interfund loan in March of '24.
Yep.
Will there ever be a time where we don't need interfund loans?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and as you look at that budget presentation, you can see that the fund balances are at different percentages and different amounts throughout the year in the different funds. As we continue to build up the ed fund, I don't think that will be necessary. Truly, I see no month-end issues right now as we stand, but I like to keep that in there, and we have the flexibility with working cash, because technically through the middle of the month, I like to have enough money there to make both payrolls. And so just as we continue to build fund balances in the ed fund, I think that will go away.
I think all the employees like payroll being made too.
I think it's a good thing to make.
All right, any other questions for the treasurer's report? All right, if there are none, I would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report for July and August 2023 as presented. All right, we have a motion and a second. Linda, can you open the vote? Thank you, Rich, for moving me along.
The vote is open.
Yeah, very aggressive motion.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the student activities report for August 2023.
Refer to the student activities report in your backup materials. The activity fund balance is $2,443,079.89 with revenues of $499,499 and expenditures of $531,803. We have 6 accounts that are in the negative, mostly due to timing or deposits. Those should be, well, at the time of the memo, half were back in the positive, and they should all be by the end of this month. New accounts, we are asking for an account for esports over at East and Environmental Action Club over at West. The rationale is included in your backup materials. I'd ask that you approve the student activity account summary as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the student activities report for August 2023 as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Just quick question on the esports. It says it's looking to buy equipment. What equipment would need to be purchased?
So that'll primarily be
Gaming
the
consoles?
screens and gaming consoles, yes.
All right.
It's already going over here at Central. It's been very successful. They're gonna get it over at East. It is now an IHSA activity, and they're giving away scholarships.
Yeah.
For that in college, so.
I think they built a esports arena like downtown.
Yeah,
Like,
that I don't know, but I do know there are competitive teams now, and they're
Yeah.
granting scholarships.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Linda, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 budget, which we already heard a presentation from Mike earlier. Joe, do you want him to run through it again?
Repeat it from start to finish one more time?
Since Joe was late. No, but if there aren't any further questions for Mike, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget.
Second.
All right, hearing no further questions, Linda, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the truck bid.
There's a cover memo in your packet materials. We have 2 new work trucks. Ours are well past end of life. This is included within the budget. Chuck and Corey Sieber in the business office issued bids. We followed all of the appropriate steps. We did not have people bidding. The supply chain still seems to be affecting here. We got a bid from Phillips. Chuck, I believe you and Corey did check Sourcewell in terms of state contracts for more competitive pricing, which was not present. And so we feel very comfortable with this. 2 trucks with the dump, 62 each, so it's $125,000, and it's within the budget. happy to take questions if you have them.
I know Rich and I were talking earlier, and I'm gonna steal his thunder. What's the end of life?
Yeah, what do we get out of the trucks lifespan? I mean, obviously.
Trucks that we currently are replacing are from 2007.
So, okay, so
We get roughly
just
20.
short of 20 years. I mean, and it's age, not mileage. I can't believe we're
No,
putting that.
mileage isn't the problem, it's
Yeah.
wear and tear.
Wear and tear and beating out there.
Those specific trucks we use mostly for snow removal and material hauling on.
Yeah,
the
plus,
side.
you said they had dump bodies on too.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're going to an aluminum dump body rather than a steel.
All right. Any other questions for the truck bid? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the truck bid as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Linda, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the mechanical upgrades project bid.
So as you can see here, we have the second pool pack, and this was what was bid as an alternate last year. The bid pricing came in at 1.8 million last year. Right now it's 1.9 is what you see before you here today. Couple of things. First, that's only a 5% adjustment, which given the way things are working in that world, we felt was pretty fair. This includes $100,000 for contingency, and as Brian mentioned when he was speaking earlier about summer projects, this particular item, and I know Rich, you've mentioned this in the past, we wanted to bring to you earlier. And so with the budget now being adopted, this is part of that $3 million, and this was the largest entity there. We'll have a busy summer just because we'll have the other pool pack, both elevators, and with your support on this item tonight, we'd have this one. So we do have a plan in place to address both pools. As it's how long is the timeline there? 6 to 8 weeks? Six weeks that they'll be down. So we've worked as an administrative team and with DLA to make sure that timing minimizes the impact on the district from an aquatic standpoint. But $1,900,400.
And when is the work gonna start on this?
So we will start east right in May. It's like May 19th, May 20th is the last swim event for the school, and we will start that following Monday at East. We'll go 6 weeks at East, and then the plan is a 1 to 2 week carryover in the middle. So we will be 1 to 2 weeks without a pool at Central and East, but if everything falls into place, then both will be completed by the middle of August when we start our school year. So the only way to get it finalized is to start right there in May at East, and then have some carryover as the same company will be here. And Brian's gonna make sure all that happens.
And when do we take delivery of the product itself?
So the first one is being stored. Are we storing it, Chuck, or are we paying to have it stored? They're storing it. So we're not worried about East being here and being started. The key will be for the central unit to be here and be ready in June when we cross over and start at Central.
Wasn't the last one like a year out?
Well, the last one we approved, I want to say, was it October or November last year that we approved?
We went out to bid 2 months, 2 or 2.5 months later, and I think it wasn't until after like January, February that we got it approved, right?
Yeah, so we're 4 months ahead of where we were last year.
Yep.
And September, we could have done the pool pack September, October at East, but you just can't do that when school starts.
Right. Okay, any other questions on the pool pack? No? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the mechanical upgrades project bid as presented?
So
Second.
All right, Linda, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, under action items, is the second reading for policies.
No change from what was presented last month. Primarily, these are just legal updates as a result of any actions last spring or over the summer, and just the re-up from our press service. But if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. But I would just recommend that we approve these policies and footnotes and references as presented.
Can I get a motion to approve the updated policies as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Dr. Tingley? Hearing none, Linda, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have proposal for consulting services.
Included in your backup material is a proposal for consulting services with RJM Consultation Services. As some of you may recall, we did do strategic planning with Dr. Madonia. It's been about 7 years ago, so I guess it had been 7 years ago this last winter, or this coming winter. At that time, he did it completely free of charge, as he had been a retired superintendent from Frankfurt, and he wanted to help us out. We were in a position where we needed community engagement. We needed to be open and transparent about the processes that we were going through, and it was, I thought at the time, was a successful exercise. After speaking with members of the board, there are members that thought it might be a good idea for us to take a look at this again. So included is a proposal from Dr. Madonia. There's also a proposed timeline that we would be able to follow. We would be able to work through that this winter and have a completed product for targets for the next 5 years by, February or March of this year. So if this is something the board would want to do, we could enter into the agreement with Dr. Madonia and move forward with some strategic planning this winter.
Any questions?
It was very impressive the last time around, so I just hope there's still enough money for Jimmy John's now that we have to pay him.
We will have Jimmy John. I'll work it into the budget, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way in 7 years, so obviously we're in a different spot, so I think it's good to get public input on where we're going for the next 5 years.
Yeah, there definitely be a different look
Yeah.
at this plan.
A little
and-
more
and-
nuanced, yeah.
Yeah, and so on the timeline, Dr. Madonia would come to the October meeting to meet with the board to determine the categories. That typically takes an hour and a half, while the discussion of what do you think are the larger focus areas. Then he will meet with the administration for a couple hours to help narrow those down a little bit, and then we'll bring them back to the community members for the focus groups. And as I said, I think it was a valuable experience and one that probably time to do again.
And anybody interested in participating, how would they, members
So
of the public?
we will send out opportunities for people to sign up, just like we did last year. We'll put it on our social media, be on our webpage. We're going to ask members of the District 210 Advisory to participate, as that would be a nice cross-section of our district with teachers, parents, and students. So we will open that up. When people apply, they fill out a questionnaire, it goes into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we're able to put people into groups based upon either their desires or their experience or their profession, what that might be. Last time, we did have over 100 participants, correct? Yeah, there were over 100. Was one of the larger groups Dr. Madonia had facilitated. We had 5 different focus areas with about 20 people in each. I don't know if we'll be able to hit that number again, but we'll certainly put it out there.
Scott, quick question.
Yep.
I know it's normally in December when we've had it before, but it's so close to the Christmas holiday. I'm looking at the 20th and the 21st. Was there any look at another date?
That's a great question. We thought that the last time, and then we had over 100 people. We could always, if Dr. Madonia's available, if the board doesn't want to do the 2 meetings in December, we could do 2 in January. It would be up to you. It's basically kind of just, it would just bump the timeline back a month. But we kind of mirrored the last time, but that's certainly something for the board to discuss. If the board wants to do that, we'll need to know because we will have to post those meetings in the newspaper, something we have to do. We're gonna have to change the time of one meeting and then add a meeting. But that's a board decision.
I understand.
Yeah.
Or is it an option for a week earlier? I was just thinking, like, when you get to the 20s.
What we had thought,
You know, the 20s,
that
people are
Thursday,
doing
that-
last-minute things, and we may not get the community that, you know, we want.
yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
The thought was the Thursday the board already had in their calendar as a board meeting. So to pair it up with a Wednesday.
Okay.
In the past, the last time we did it, we did a Friday night and a Saturday.
Yeah.
And it was the third weekend in December, and we didn't think anybody would come.
And
And
they-
so I completely agree, Deidre. It's just how we work it into the whole schedule.
Okay.
I'm open to whatever.
Would we need to decide that December now? Like right now, or?
No, I mean, we can post, after October, we could post it in the newspaper. So we could do that. We could do that. And that's also something that you can pull the board separately and get back to me, and then I can go ahead and reserve time for my administrators and do those types of things.
Okay.
Honestly, Scott, it might stay there, you know, because when the community gets used to seeing something at a certain time, I just wanted to know, you know, those dates, 2021st, that's all.
December's always
I
rough.
know, it's that, right, okay,
So.
all right.
Gets me out of doing Christmas stuff around the house, though, so.
Yeah.
No, I'll talk to the fellow board members and
Yeah,
get back to you
let me
in a
know.
day or two.
Yep.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consulting services with RJM Consulting to facilitate a 5-year strategic long-range plan as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Linda, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the report of the Lincoln Way Special Education District 843 Governing Board meetings held July 25th, 2023 and August 22nd, 2023.
Dana's not here this evening, but the minutes are in your backup materials.
No FOIA requests?
No FOIA requests? How about that?
Buildings and ground reports.
Also in your backup materials, if you have any questions, we continue to keep that updated.
Community relations
Community
report?
Relations report in your backup materials. The band is off to a hot start, having pretty much swept everything at Stag last weekend. So they're doing a really good job and off to a good start.
Congrats to them. Legislative report?
Nothing to report at this time. I will be down in Springfield for the end of next week for meetings, and we'll see what is being proposed and discussed. I do know there are discussions on pension reform once again in committee, maybe another tier, so we'll have to continue to watch that. That's one of the, I don't know, I guess, challenges right now to attracting new teachers is telling them you're going to work until you're 67 or 70 years old, and people can leave at 55. So there are discussions right now. Those are in committee, but I will be down there Thursday, Friday of next week, and we'll see if anything comes about.
Superintendent's district report.
Nothing to include other than homecoming at East and Central this week. Last week was West and Central this week. Last week was East. Going really, really well. And so by Saturday evening, midnight, we'll be through with all 3 homecomings, which is always a nice deep breath.
All right, any other district business?
None at this time.
Any correspondence?
None.
All right, there's no closed session this evening?
Correct.
So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Linda, do we open the vote or can we just all in favor? Aye. All right, we are closed. Our next meeting is October 19th, 2023.